Hi, AP Stats. Let's talk about 11.2 inference for relationships. So we are going to use two sample Z procedures, or we used two sample Z procedures to compare the proportion of successes in two populations or treatments. To compare the proportion of, we're going to say success for two populations or treatments. And we can use data from a two-way table to do inference for chi-squared. So remember, a two-way table is something like college grad and not a college grad. And then there's another two variables. So let's go male and female. So one variable is gender, one variable is whether or not they're a college graduate, and in the table is a bunch of data that represents, for example, someone who is female but not a college graduate or what have you. In our two-way table, remember we have two different types of variables, the explanatory and the response. And the response is the result of changing an explanatory variable. Result of changing the explanatory variable. We're going to look at an example that really just reminds us of all that we did prior with conditional distributions and side-by-side or segmented bar graphs. Market researchers suspect that background music may affect the mood and buying behavior of customers. One study in a supermarket compared three randomly assigned treatments: no music, French accordion music, and Italian string music. Under each condition, the researchers recorded the number of bottles of French, Italian, and other wine purchased. Here's the table that summarizes our data. So we've got type of music and type of wine purchased. Let's take a moment, though, to think about which variable is our explanatory and which is our response. If I change the type of music, is the amount of wine being impacted, is really the question that we're trying to answer. That means our response is the type of wine, and our explanatory was the music. Just to think of it the other way, it doesn't make sense to say that someone who buys French wine is impacting the music that's being played in the store. A says to calculate the conditional distributions in proportions of the type of wine sold for each treatment. Remember, when we do this, we do our conditional distributions based on the explanatory variable, based on the thing that is changing. So we are going to do each distribution for no music, French music, and Italian music broken up into the different types of wine. If we want to calculate the proportion of people who bought French wine when no music was playing, we are going to take this 30 out of the total number who bought wine when no music was played. 30 out of 84 is about 36%. And then we would continue down this no music, so 11 out of 84, which is about 13%. And 43 out of 84, which is about 51%. Notice if I add those percents up, I'm going to get about 100% because we're looking at no music all in one. If you would like to pause the video right now to calculate the rest, please do so. Otherwise, in a moment, you will see all of the conditional distributions on the screen. So again, here we have our conditional distribution, our answer for A. Under no music, we had 36, 13, 51%. Under French music, 51, 1, and 47. And under Italian, 36, 23, 42. B says to make an appropriate graph for comparing the conditional distributions in part A. Different types of graphs we could create would be pie chart, and that would be, we would make a pie chart for each different type of music. Pie chart. We can make a segmented bar graph, which is what we are going to do, segmented bar graph, or a side-by-side bar graph. But I want to do the segmented bar graph because I think it looks the nicest. So what are we going to do? Well, if you recall, we are going to make a bar that represents all of the no music, splitting it up into three equal sections. Sorry, not three equal sections. Three sections that equal the proportions that we have in our conditional distribution. So again, take some time right now to create your segmented bar graph. I will be pausing the video to create it, and then it will just show up on your screen in a moment. All right, I've got my segmented bar graph, and I just want to point out a couple of the things to remind you. The first is making sure that you have a key that shows what either colors, but likely on the AP exam you wouldn't have colors. So remember, you can do things like dots or shading or just lines or whatever you need to show different variables here. And make sure your axes are labeled and relatively accurate in terms of spacing on the y-axis. So we have an answer for B, which had just asked us to make an appropriate graph. C then asks, are the distributions of wine purchases under the three music treatments similar or different? Give appropriate evidence from parts A and B to support your answer. For this one, there's kind of a lot of things we could say, and I will talk through some of them, but the things to remember for a problem like this are that we want to compare, that we really want to give evidence for each different statement we make. We want to use information in our bar graph or table, so we want to actually use values and numbers that we see, and answer the question fully. So I am going to type up an answer and then read it to you, and then we'll be good here. So I said, across the board, Italian wine is the least popular. So Italian being that dark blue in our distribution. When no music was playing, 13% of the wine purchased was Italian. This percentage did jump up to 23% when Italian music was playing, but fell to only about 1% when French music was playing. While French music seemed to have a positive impact on French wine purchased, percentages for Italian and no music were the same. This information tells us that we notice there are some initial differences in these distributions, and we have a little bit of evidence to suggest that music does influence customers. We can't say for certain, just from our numbers, that music does impact, because of course the question is always, is it possible that they are being influenced by something other than this explanatory variable here? Or is it really that the music is impacting them? That question is going to be answered with a chi-squared test, and we will talk about that in class next time I see you. Have a good rest of your day whenever you watch this.